new music to complement the new season. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do this. On the left-hand side of the map of Pistol City, he is representing Startale today, #1 player, Curious. Also coming out first, 4 Evil Geniuses in the blue on the right-hand side. You could see him here as a barcode, but he is, in fact, Revival.
That's right. Evil Geniuses Revival rate call here. You know, this barcode guy sure has a lot of Smurfs. Very good, dominating the Korean ladder right now on at least 30 accounts. Yeah. That's very impressive.
I think, oh, what is the movie? It's a time travel movie. It is really, really cool. I think it begins with a P.
With P? Oh man. Oh no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm completely blank. The movie was fantastic. They climbed it. I really want somebody to tweet this at me. Like they climb into boxes. They look like coffins. They like find out how to travel back in time. They have to climb out of them. This guy's doing that for the ladder. I'm so upset I can't remember the name of this movie right now.
It's all right. But what we do know is that we have a ZVZ here, and Pistol City plays out a little bit interestingly because there's a few different distinct high ground paths that you usually have to watch out. Muta's not as popular here. People usually want to gun it for those infestors because if you can actually manage this high ground here outside of your natural leading over to your third, you're pretty safe in a lot of circumstances. We've also noticed that in a lot of Zerg versus Zerg situations that people will prioritize spreading out creep down here through this bottom path, mostly due to the fact that they can, you know, then have a little bit better control of the map. Their units are going to be closer to this high ground anyway from their natural and between their third. Yeah. So if you can get the creep spread out here, you can actually get a little bit more maneuverability. Yes, there's always the argument that it benefits your opponent as well, but you want to make sure you have a lockdown on this area.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of like the opportunity cost of creep and, you know, having to make the extra queens more than it is, who it helps more. But I do agree with you that on Kevin. And another thing that you mentioned there, mutas. Mutas are so actually like bad on Pistol City because you have 3 expansions that are perfectly in a line. And in order to go from, like, say you attack into the main and then you want to move to the third, you actually have to swing in front of the natural expansion where it's so easy to get caught, even by, like, Hydralisks or Infestor play. So Muta's just really lacking in strength on this map, but consequently, you know, people don't expect them, so it's always a possibility it could be thrown in, but don't expect Muta play to rip a player apart on Abyssal City.
Right. I've seen Muta play work here, but like you said, don't count on it. We already have a little bit of a difference between our two players. Both went 15 hatch, yes, but then Curious followed it up with a little bit quicker extractor and a little bit quicker pool. Whereas his opponent, Revival, ended up going for the pool before gas. So he's going to have that gas quite a bit slower than his opponent. We can see that's going to start here very soon, I would imagine, actually building up a little bit past that 100 gas and then continuing on, still mining 3 gas at a time, which is what most Zerg players have been doing, is they want to really just gun it for that layer tech and eventually into either roaches or infestors.
Yeah, it's gotten really, really standard. It also poses late game advantages in the middle stages of the game when Zergs go for that third. Because if you have Ling Bane, you know, you throw it on the Baneling Nest, but as you said, you may see an Evo chamber or something of that nature, but you tend to just gun it for Hive if there's no Ling Bane fight. But then you have that Baneling Nest, you have speed later on. When your opponent tries to take a third, you can pressure them with Ling Bane. If you succeed with better micro, you could potentially take out that third and get a huge advantage.
And this is something we've been seeing more and more out of Zerg players lately. We saw it yesterday in Leonok versus Yun. Players taking their Baneling Nest inside of their main. Now here is the difference, and this is what more I guess we were expecting out of Revival here. This Baneling Nest is put into a position where you can either duck his queen in this spot if Zerglings decide to attack in force, or you can put that Spine Crawler in and tuck it in against the hatchery, against the Baneling Nest, to make sure that it exposes less of its surface area against a Zergling attack.
Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, that Spine Crawler, it's actually, I mean, it's cool to see all the little variations that people do. Like Revival here, he didn't go for like the full sandwich. The spine's actually pretty poking out there. So, I mean, we could see safety defensive Banelings just because, but here we go, guys. Curious is going to be going for a little bit of an attack here. 16 Lings on the way right now, 2 Banelings. But as we were just saying, Revival is making a couple safety Banelings at home, and he'll actually be pretty prepped for this.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the Spine Crawler in that great spot we were talking about. You mentioned the safety Banelings. Already an evolution chamber to help start to lock down this wall, too. With the Queen there, it's going to take a lot out of Curious to do some damage, and he is actually just going to duck on through. Loses both of his Banelings without taking out any units. He may have injured some, yes, but that's the best that he did, and already Revival is in a ridiculously good position. He's not taking any economic damage at all.
You're so right, Kevin. I mean, there's the lair starting up for Revival. Revival right now, and you may say, oh, Curious started his before, but Revival's 3 gases are already done in mining. He is now operating on 4 extractors, and, well, at this position, I mean, Curious can't get any damage in. We've already seen +1 missile start, and the Evo Chamber's done. Normally, you'd start a Roach Warren around this time, but Curious is at such an economic disadvantage right now. Revival knows that, okay, so he is going to start the Roach Warren, but, you know, he was able to start that later because he realized, Curious, you made a ton of lings and got nothing done with them. There's no way you're following this up with an attack. If it is, it's an all-in, and if I hold, I win.
Well, you know, I mean, Revival's going to have a pretty good position out of this here towards the mid-game. Yes, he's up by 5 workers right now, but, I mean, that actually is going to be stretched here in just a bit. He hasn't taken any damage. He's going up to that Roach Warren. His layer tech is going to be a little bit behind his opponent. That's not really going to matter in the grand scheme of things, especially with that much earlier upgrade. That's really what's important to him.
Yeah, I mean, all right, so the upgrade is going to be ahead. Right now we got a couple of lings trying to get this Baneling dead, which would be a nice victory. Revival not morphing in any extra Banelings here, so he's got to feel really safe, but there it is. Infestation Pit right as the Roach Warren finishes. Revival just playing textbook ZVZ right now, but Curious, on the other hand, he's not going for Infestors. He's got Gleal +1 and some Roaches on the way. He may go for a push here, but I don't know how much success he's going to find as Revival's making Roaches on his own.
He is making Roaches, and you mentioned the possibility of a big all-in after this, maybe a +1 Gleal Reconstitution all-in, and the thing is that, you mentioned before, if Revival holds this, he wins. Now, and on top of this is something we actually saw time and time again yesterday in the match of Leenock versus Hyun. Hyun tried to poke out there. He tried to do some damage with his +1 Roaches. The problem was that he didn't have any Infestor Tech to fall back on. He put all of his resources into doing some damage, and as a result, Leenock, in most cases, was able to hold and stretch a massive advantage in the game. And that's exactly what Revival's doing right here, supposing, of course, he would hold this. Now here's a big difference. Because he made a bunch of Roaches, he's not doing any damage with them right now, and going into Infestor Tech so much later, this is again increasing Revival's advantage. He's already got Pathogen Glance 30 seconds done. He can start making 2 or 3 Infestors in just a second.
He is going to have a nice tech advantage, but a small advantage for Curious is that he got his hatchery started actually like 50 or 60 seconds earlier here while he was pushing with those lings. Now, you know, Curious was able to do a little bit of Ling Bane poking there, but the reality is that Revival started his Roaches the second his Roach Warren finished. Sometimes you see players like, you'll continue to drone, maybe you'll start a second upgrade, and you'll drop the Infestation Pit, but no. He made Roaches, he was safe, and Curious didn't get any damage in.
And Revival has 2 Infestors popping in 15 seconds. And as soon as those do, we mentioned that this corridor and this high ground, this is the most important spot for a defender. And if you can watch that, you're going to be in a good spot. Now, Curious does have a nice little time here to get in and try and deny this hatchery. But of course, the units for Revival are already in position. He's just delaying. He needs to get those Infestors up to the front. And they're not quite making their way there, but one Fungal Growth would actually lock down a good portion of those units. He finally has it off to the side. Will he lock down the units? He does, and that's going to give him a big victory here. Curious takes a massive hit.
Oh, yeah, he does. Startale off to a rough start right now as Curious is certainly behind against Revival at this stage. He just lost a ton of Roaches. Yeah, his economy is, you know what, can we actually, let's take a look at the units tab and see the worker count. It's dead even. Curious, you know, his third finished a little bit faster, but he wasn't able to reap the advantages that offers, and consequently, he's now down 20 supply and behind on his Infestor Tech.
All right, so down 20 supply. Where is that supply, actually? It looks like it's the 12 Roaches. That's the big difference between our 2 players. Both are now making additional Infestors. The workers are tied up once again. So really, the only difference between these 2 players is the amount of offensive output that's there. Now, Revival, even though things may look a little bit even in that regard, Revival has another advantage, too. And that's the earlier upgrades that he went for before. It's 40 seconds ahead. That's a massive amount of time that he can actually get in there, either win an engagement or try to put on economic pressure. Just something that he can do with his offensive units that Curious will not be able to match.
It's going to be interesting seeing what he opts to do. Will he go for the push, or will he just go to take a very fast 4th expansion? We do see he has a macro hatch in his main base. Curious is ramping up an additional one as well. But, I mean, these guys are going to have severe unit output. So it looks like Revival's going to try to go for a push. Curious, anticipating this with a macro hatch of his own, is going to be ready to defend.
Yeah, but, you know, Revival is playing the weight game right now, and that could cause a little bit of problems. We've used this analogy a lot, but of course, if you're a certain percentage ahead of your opponent, let's say, that percentage is going to narrow as the game increases, because you give your opponent the ability to sit back and macro, and they can start to take the necessary risks and start to take the cutting of corners, I guess, in order to find themselves back into the game. And Curious certainly has a large enough force now where if he gets the perfect engagement, he can actually start to find some equity here. Revival still has the edge, he still has the advantage, and he's still going to have another massive timing available to him with this +1 carapace that's now 50 seconds and counting ahead of his opponents.
He definitely will, Kevin. It's going to be quite scary for Curious. Meanwhile, Curious is ramping up his defenses as best as he possibly can. We see he's got a spine crawler building somewhere. His carapace is just starting as well, and he's continuing to pump out roaches and infestors. But, I mean, it's still a 20 supply difference between these two players, and we can see that Revival, it looks like he's gearing up to take, his 4th expansion, going down and transitioning into those Hydralisks.
And this Overseer is finally going to get out of there, but the Infested Terran certainly could use a 25 energy there to push it away. Overseer may actually check out this base here at the top of the map. Yeah, it's a good pickup there for Curious, as he knows that's going to be a point of engagement. But it was a good time for Revival to take that, because he's already gone up to his Hydralisk tech, because he's already got his upgrades in place, because he's going to have that +1. He can safely take that 3rd base behind this pressure.
Now, this is an interesting time right now for Revival, because he's maxed out, but he just made a tech switch into Hydralisks, and attacking before the Hydras arrive, it's definitely not going to be his strongest move, but at the same time, he's maxed out, so you want to get rid of some of this supply. So it's going to be likely an attack coming here. And he is going to wait for the Hydras. Definitely like that maneuver. Taking out a couple of creep tumors. Looks like he's going to make a shift down to the 4th, which is going to be easily denied if he tries to go for that.
Yep, and he's coinciding this with this +1 carapace. He's going to be able to deny the 4th base pretty easily. That's going to be forced to be canceled or killed. That's 300 resources gone at a time when Revival's actually banking resources to just completely replenish his army. He moves in, gets a lot of units bungled, and he doesn't have the best of concaves, but he's finally ducking in from the right-hand side. A lot of energy left on his own infestors, so if he can find a decent engagement here, he can continue to push that over the top with more Infested Terrans as this goes along. But so far, Curious, even though he's at an upgrade disadvantage, he managed to kill a lot of units, but it's not enough. Revival can reinforce too quickly. His upgrade advantage is too strong. He's going to be able to push his opponent back, and now this is the economic damage he needed to inflict. So even though Curious had a good start to that engagement, it wasn't enough.
Yeah, Revival just circled him like a pack of sharks and is now chomping away at the bit as Curious is being taken out, folks. Revival's just going to close things out here as he continues to likely push, because, I mean, he's got reinforcements streaming across the map. Yeah, this is going to be way too much. 180 supply right now to just 120.
And all those infestors are hightailing it out of there. I don't know if there's an Overseer overhead. It doesn't look like there is. Infested Terran's actually dropping out to tank more damage, pick off these spine crawlers, which are doing quite well. And even though, once again, we're in a scenario where Revival is so far ahead right now, he can throw away these units over and over again. It's not something you want to do necessarily, but he can afford it because you can already see the supply disparity and the amount of resources he still has available to remax back at home.
A noteworthy play, however, from Curious, who, I mean, at this point is only at 100 supply, so probably did anyways, but he did deny the 4th of Revival.
Yeah, nice job taking that out. It looks like it's going to be retaken again here by Revival, who's a little more concerned, obviously, with this push up at the front. No energy left on these infestors. This one's still 20 seconds away from having a fungal growth available, and the resources or the units just continue to string forward. There's GG. Evil Geniuses takes game number 1 here of this best of 9.
It was a really impressive game there out of Revival, without a doubt. I mean, Curious, he went for that early game aggression, Kevin, and got nothing done with it. Revival played it beautifully. He was just like, okay, now, I mean, he just played pretty textbook, and then, I mean, just capitalized on his lead and then had a good engagement, which I think was very important for him.
All right, well, that's quite a debut. Evil Geniuses Revival. I think that's actually his first game as an Evil Geniuses member. So he wins a game. That's all you can ask for from your starter. But up next, he may need a little bit more soul because he's coming up against Startale Parting, who has chosen Ohana, the best map for the Century Immortal All-In. I've got to assume that that's what he's going to do.
Hey, I mean, it is Ohana, and it is Parting, and it's a Zerg.
Yeah.
All right, get yourself set for some soul-filled play, ladies and gentlemen.
Is it time for the return of the Kevinaki Soulmometer? That's the real question. Guys, we are going to run to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to see if Parting can tie things up against Evil Geniuses Revival, taking game number 1 in style.